Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and I'm going on a long journey of trying to complete every single Game Boy Advance game in North America. This is the story of the highs, the lows, and all the silly stuff in between for the Game Boy Advance completion experience. This is GB Ace. Game number 23, Nickelodeon's Barnyard. Well, what do you know, we did get another licensed movie game, but this time by Nickelodeon. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Nickelodeon's Barnyard, released in August of 2006, published by THQ, and developed by Half Brick Studios. As expected, this game was also put on consoles as well, but that version was handled by Blue Tongue Entertainment. So here we go again, another licensed movie game based on a movie I've never seen before. I swear, do not be shocked if this becomes a running theme throughout this series. I didn't see a whole lot of movies back then. However, unlike Chicken Little, which I had at least heard of before, this was a franchise I had absolutely no knowledge of whatsoever. I just naturally assumed it was a typical anthropomorphic farm animal movie where, when the humans are no longer looking, all the animals come together and do human-like things like have parties, play recreational sports, ride bikes, and drive cars. You name it. And, well, yeah, that's pretty much what we have here. Heck, even the game's opening cutscene pays homage to that, as it's pretty much an established rule that humans are not allowed to know about their activities. So, way to be right on the nose there, writers. So yeah, this game follows pretty much the main plot of the 2006 Barnyard movie. Although I will say, the general premise of this game and the gameplay is something I found kind of intriguing here. The movie follows a cow named Otis as he deals with the general day-to-day life of living in a farm community, and while Otis is still in this game and a main prominent character of the plot, we actually play as and control our own character here that we can create at the beginning of the game. Our character is new to this community and will serve mostly as a helping hand to get the events of the story moving forward, which I thought was kind of a unique premise here. As for what genre I would define this game, I'm really not sure, although I'm tempted to say it's a cross between an overhead simulation game, something like The Sims for example, and a minigame collection, more in the realm of Mario Party, without the board gameplay obviously. You basically walk around the world talking to characters, collecting items, performing fetch quests, playing minigames, earning money for those fetch quests and minigames, using that money to purchase things that will also progress the story, and just complete a bunch of these mini objectives until you pretty much complete the entire game. That's pretty much what you have here. It's a very simple premise and set of objectives, and not one I really need to delve into too much to explain the completion goal either, so let's just get right into it, shall we? As explained before, we're immediately given the lowdown for how this world works as we enter the game as our new cow-sona, I guess, Slimbo the Cow. In this world, we can basically move around with the D-pad, interact with other characters and objects with the A button, use active items with the B button, which you can set your active item from the pause menu, and run around with the R button. You do have a stamina meter, so you can't run for very long before you start to slow down a bit, and there is a health meter as well, but at this early point in the game, you can't really be hurt by anything, so it shouldn't be too much of a concern. You can also press the L button to activate your udders to shoot milk in whatever direction you want, which, yeah, you're a cow, so I guess there's nothing really weird about that, but still, it's definitely something you can do. So yeah, you basically just kind of wander around the farm interacting with the other animals. Every now and then, you'll see an animal with an icon over their head, which symbolizes that there is a mission or quest you can do with them. These quests are relatively simple, especially at first, where a large number of them will be, hey, bring me a certain number of this item, or find this other character and give or tell them something for me. Very basic first grade stuff that anyone should be able to figure out with relatively little issue. Some quests will obviously be more important than others, as the map screen will show you the location of the next marker, meaning if you do this, you will make more progress in the game. But don't be afraid to do other quests along the way, because they will give you some rewards, like Barnyard bucks, that you may need as well to make future story progress. Most of the main quests will be handled and given out by Ben, the cow who is considered to be somewhat of a leader by the community, who is a little strict and orderly, but seems to be a genuine-hearted bovine. Otis, the main character of the movie, who is very friendly and helpful, but also a bit of a goofball who can't seem to resist having some risky fun from time to time. And an elderly mule named Miles, who also seems very intent on helping you throughout your adventures here on the farm. Heck, Miles even gives you a cell phone that you can use as your own personal Navi device if you ever get stuck or don't know what to do. The secondary quests are a little harder to track, but that's only because the game doesn't really try to track them at all. If you activate one, you just kinda have to remember what or who you're trying to find. You can always ask the character again to repeat it, as they will always have the marker above their head, but it doesn't give you any blip on the map to follow, so it may not hurt to have a pen and piece of paper handy, or word processing program open, to take notes, if you really care about that anyway. And yes, I can't possibly forget about the minigames either, and trust me, there are a whole bunch of them you can play for this game. In fact, some of them may even be optional as far as I know. I'll try to cover as much as I can as I go throughout the game, but sometimes it's just hard to know which ones are important and which ones aren't, just due to the fast-paced nature of this game progression. But I played some darts where I had to navigate my character through some rings and try to stick to the middle target. The more rings you get and the closer to the center you get, the more points you'll add to your score. And I also played a whack-a-mole game where the more moles you whack consecutively without missing, the higher your combo multiplier will be and the more points you get as a result. These were two very basic games, but hey, they were honestly pretty fun as well, so not a bad start, I gotta say. We earned some Barnyard bucks for our completion of these games, and then I went to the barn to fall asleep for my first official day at the farm. Oh yeah, I suppose it's worth mentioning that this game does have a bit of an in-game clock running. I wouldn't say the clock is too important for a majority of the events, though. Sometimes certain quests and minigames can only be played at a certain time frame, and sometimes you may be asked to complete an objective within a 2 or 3 hour period of game time. But usually these asks aren't too hard to manage or remember, especially if you just go ahead and make that your current priority. You can also only fall asleep to advance to the next day after 5 p.m., and if you try to stay up too late, you'll actually fall asleep wherever you are on the map. This actually happened during my second night when I was out exploring, but to be honest, it didn't really seem like much of an issue, as I just woke up back in the barn with no penalty. If anything, it just helped me by giving me a quick travel point back to the barn without having to walk there. Heck, later on in the game, it's revealed that you don't even need to be at the barn to force sleep anyway. You can just bring up the pause menu, hit the button, and bam, back at the barn to start a new day. Probably could have used as a speedrun strat if you really think about it. Anyway, the point is, I don't really see the necessity for the in-game clock, or really even the sleep feature. I guess it's to build a little more realism in this environment, but I wouldn't say it's completely vital either. Just seemed like an extra undercooked mechanic. When we start one of our days, we're told to find Otis to officially meet him, and remind him that he is on duty for that night. We find him in front of the barn's mailbox teasing the human mailman by taunting him when his back is turned, and we're asked if we want to join in on the silliness, but in minigame form. It's basically just a game of chicken to see how many points we can get without getting caught. After succeeding, we can advance the plot and even get a gold star for our trouble. I believe at this point the front gate opens and we can start actually exploring some of the world around us, although not everything, since we'll need to make more progress in the game to unlock further areas. I run into Miles again, and he actually takes notice of the gold star we obtained, and we can trade it into him to increase the stats of our character. We can increase our strength, our speed, or our utter power. Speed is obviously how fast we go. Strength is health, but I also believe it covers how long the stamina meter can last as well, while utter is just a basic milk shooting upgrade, potentially how much you can shoot before you need to fill up your meter again. As you can tell, I didn't choose this upgrade much as speed and strength seemed way more important and made things a lot faster. I also discovered another minigame that was pretty much just like Frogger. It was pretty fun though. Just make sure you are patient when making your jumps though, as you need to make it through 3 full rounds and it can be a little on the long side. After finishing the game, I tried to go a little further north, but was assaulted by a raccoon who seemed pretty hostile. Raccoons are one of 2 dangerous creatures you'll deal with in this game, although they are pretty slow attackers and I never really found myself getting damaged by one once during the first few hours of me playing this, so they are really not too bad. I just decided to shoot it with some milk and then go back to the barn. Ben decides to punish Otis for toying with the mailman earlier, and since we joined in on the festivities, we have to help him out, so it looks like we're going to be doing some handiwork. After gathering together some of Otis's friends, it's revealed that we need to find a hammer and some nails to get working on this project. A dog named Duke helps us out with the hammer, which I gotta say, Duke's portrait makes him look like he was ripped straight out of Family Guy. And we find out that the nails can actually be bought at an underground gopher shop on the other side of the map. We just have to make our way around there and get through those hostile raccoons I mentioned earlier. Along the way, we help out a few more of our local barnyard buddies, including Courtney Cox the cow. Okay, her name is Daisy, but she was voiced by Courtney Cox in the movie, so you go, Monica Geller. And then, after that, we finally make it to the gopher shop where we can finally purchase some nails. The shop is actually kind of neat though. You can buy a lot of the normal resources that you can find around the farm, but every day there is one resource that the shop doesn't have. And if you happen to have an abundance of that resource, you can sell it to them and the gophers will give you a lot of barnyard bucks for it. In other words, collect a lot of stuff and you may be handsomely rewarded for it. You can also buy kits of some of the mini-games you've played so far, and if you do so, they'll actually be available to play at any time in the basement of the barn, and I think some of them are actually longer variations of the games too, so you can try to set a high score if you really want to do that. Really cool if you're into that kind of thing. You can also just get random cosmetic items for the barn too, which probably not too necessary as they don't really do anything for the game, but you'll likely be getting a lot of money in this game regardless, so may as well use it on something, right? We head back to the barn and get the work done, but Otis wants to do and provide something a little extra for the party happening tonight, so he sends us back to the gopher store to pick up a kit for a milk bar. Along the way, I run into a goat named Gus, who is actually standing near the Frogger game we played earlier, and he actually challenges us to complete the minigame, but under more strict conditions. Not only are the platforms smaller and don't line up as often as they did before, but we also can't fall into the water at any point, or the minigame will just automatically end, while before it was just a simple time loss. We also have to pay Barnyard bucks to attempt this challenge, but once you succeed, you'll essentially get more than what you paid initially as a reward, as well as a trophy that will be on display in the barn's trophy case. Essentially, something additional you can do for 100% game completion, if you're up for that anyway. I make it to the gopher store and buy the milk bar kit, but instead of going back right away, I keep following the path further until I run into another minigame, which this one was a sliding puzzle. Not much to say here though. Again, it's a sliding puzzle. Just move the pieces around until you complete the picture. Simple enough. Also, you know it's coming. Pieces Game of the Year! In addition to some more Barnyard bucks though, completing this game did actually unlock something more important, a shortcut back to the barn and a much shorter path to the gopher store. Damn, really wish I would have found this sooner, huh? Before I continue on with more of the story, I hang around this area and complete some of the other minigames that are available, including a bowling game, which is pretty easy considering it just becomes an exercise in precise timing and not really aiming, and a racing game where you just run 3 laps around a track. I did have a little bit of a difficulty with the racing game, not because it was hard, but because my controller was acting up a bit. I think my D-pad was drifting or something, which sucks because I have a really bad history with PC controllers. Heck, I want to say that this is actually the second controller I've used for GBA since I started this challenge, and for real, I worry about the potential numbers of that statistic the further we get into this. After the games, I return to the barn, we get the milk bar built, and then it's party time for all these crazy animals. It turns out, though, that this party had a larger purpose in mind in terms of celebrating our arrival to this farm. Ah, how sweet. I feel even more welcome now. During this time, we can also play 2 additional minigames. One where you basically inflate and deflate a bubble in order for a mouse to grab cheese, and a tabletop game where you have to launch marbles so they land on specific squares, using a combination of good timing for your power launches and smarts in an effort to bang shot marbles off of specific nails. Gotta say, this second minigame was actually kinda cool, not gonna lie. After a bit of fun, we decide to head up to bed for the night, and when we wake up, Ben actually lets us know that he left us a gift in the barnyard basement, which turns out to be our very own bicycle. So now we can use this to get around the farm even faster. And heck, screw what Professor Oak says, we can even ride this baby around indoors too, so no more, "I don't think you can use that indoors, you bad boy." But yeah, the bike is really nice. You can even use the run button while riding it to go even faster, but honestly, you probably won't even need that since it goes pretty fast as it is. Anyway, back to work we go. I run into Gus and take on another trophy challenge, this time for the bowling minigame, although the goal here is just to get a higher number of points, which is not really that hard to do. I also do another minigame that uses the bike, but it's really just the race minigame from earlier, just with bikes and on a slightly different course. Also, one of my opponents gets stuck during this, reminding me of something similar that happened during the Chicken Little playthrough only a few hours previously. I fulfill a couple more random quests that involve doing deliveries from the Gopher store, and then I'm off to help Otis with some tasks around the farm, which means more minigames for us. For these minigames, we have to set up a fence, sort some fruit, and shoot targets with our milk. Lovely. The fence minigame is actually pretty easy and reasonable. You just have to put the right amount of power into your hammer swing and avoid the bees and hitting the post too hard to the point where you crack the boards. For fruit sorting, you just have to make sure the buckets on the bottom match the order of the fruit on the conveyor belt. Also pretty easy. And for milk shooting, it's just a matter of facing the right direction and firing at the targets before they disappear. So, yeah, none of these particular variations are really that difficult. Notice how I said variations, though. First off, both the fence minigame and the sorting minigame are special. Special in that you actually get graded on how well you do and receive a gold, silver, or bronze medal based on your performance. The first time you do these, getting gold is actually very easy. But we'll have to come back to these games later, and they'll be not only more difficult, but the margins for gold will be a lot more strict and tight, so keep that in mind. The reason you do want to aim for gold, though, is because if you get a gold medal on a minigame 3 times, you'll actually get a gold star, and as we know, gold stars mean better stats, and better stats means, hell yeah, I'm getting those. For the target shooting game, I was admittedly starting to get a bit worried, though, about my drifting D-pad I was mentioning earlier. Aiming your arrow reticle in the right direction was a lot more difficult to do than what I was expecting, particularly on the diagonal shots. Sometimes I would aim in that direction just to have the crosshair shift left or right a smidge, and you need to be pretty accurate with where you aim. Thankfully I pulled it off here, and this is not a minigame that has a gold medal requirement or anything, but just wait and see on that. I spend the rest of the day doing some more missions for the Gopher Shop, and also a group of bovines that call themselves the Jersey Cows, who seem obsessed with setting records on minigames we have to play again. After it gets late, though, I go to bed and get the next day started. It's at this point where I notice that Gus is near the milking range, and it's like my worst nightmare had come true. So for this trophy challenge, we don't only need to get a high score, but we need to get a perfect score. We can't miss a single target in this minigame, otherwise we fail and have to try again. I immediately shifted my D-pad controls to my controller's analog stick, and to be honest, this didn't help as much as I was hoping it would. I did find I was holding my directions more, but there were still times where I would just aim diagonally, and as I was firing, the arrow just kept shifting to the side, and I had no idea why this was happening. This absolutely frustrated me, and was easily the worst part of this playthrough so far. Heck, I even had an attempt where I failed on literally the last target, and again, it felt like I had no control over this happening either. The game just decided, nah, do it again, and drew out my salty tears. Now, I was only stalled in this game for 15 minutes, which honestly I thought took a lot longer than that, but still, it was a very frustrating 15 minutes because I had no control over what was going on. I swear, I have such bad luck with PC controllers when it comes to emulation, and I honestly don't know why either. I promise I take good care of my controllers, it's more that they just aren't made the way they used to be made. Anyway, I don't really blame the game for this, as it was more of a tech issue, so I won't hold this against the game too much, but I won't be surprised if this ends up being the absolute low point of this playthrough. I continue wandering around for a bit and end up at the site of a pool table for, yep, you guessed it, another minigame. This is a very simple exercise where you just have to knock all the balls into the pocket before the time limit expires. You don't even have to do it with all 9 billiard balls either, just a small handful, so it's really not too bad. Although I admittedly have played better controlling billiard games in the past. Candy Stand Billiards, this is not. Shoutouts to Candy Stand, by the way. Fantastic old school flash game website where I spent many of my middle school computer lab days and easily has the best browser-based billiards game ever made. We have another request from Ben, our lovely leader, and he wants us to help him find his guitar, which has apparently been stolen by some raccoons and taken to their territory, which we unfortunately do not have access to yet. Otis does have access to the area though, so after showing him that we have the stamina after completing a quick time trial, he gives us the key to the southern gate, and now we can access Walnut Woods. There's actually a couple of points of interest around here, including a golf course that I've been very interested in finding throughout the course of this game so far. However, this territory feels very blocked off and I was unable to locate it on my first trip through here. I did find the apple grab minigame though, and it was basically just catch fruit and win. Very simple. Also kind of reminded me of Bumper Crop Bump from Kirby 64 because, well, of course it did. I found Ben's guitar and brought it back to him, and it seems like Ben has found out that Otis is trying to hold a party tonight, despite the fact that he should be on duty. However, because Ben has a heart of gold and is just too precious for this world, he decides to let Otis have his partay and takes over a shift for the evening. We then meet up with Otis and make some final preparations for the big shindig, and then watch as the party unfolds with what I guess is a singing number? Unfortunately though, we get some very sad news when the scene switches over to Ben, who has gotten himself in a bit of trouble with some coyotes. And yes, coyotes are the second dangerous animal of this universe. Ben tragically dies here to our great displeasure, and now Otis has become the newly appointed and elected leader of the Barnyard. Otis seems like he's not quite ready to lead yet though, but it doesn't really seem like he has much of a choice since everyone here looks up to him. Unfortunately though, it's almost daylight time and Otis needs to run some interference to make sure our anthropomorphic activities aren't discovered by the humans. At the same time, however, a weird little furball named Wild Mike is here and challenges us to a dance-off, which of course puts us in charge of this minigame. Nothing really to say here, just press the buttons as they appear on screen and go across the reticle. I do like how this is apparently the second dancing minigame we've had in this series though, the first being that one boss battle during the TAC playthrough. Funnily enough, also a Nick Games product like this game, so I guess we know what game series was on the developer's mind at this point. We win the dance battle and get rid of one of our trouble spots, but unfortunately we are not so lucky when the farmer arrives and enters the barn, discovering the scary truth of our activities. That's right, animals can actually walk, talk, and dance like humans. Who knew? Luckily, Miles is here and is able to de-escalate the situation in a calm and peaceful manner. Okay, maybe that wasn't the best idea, but hey, it gives us some time to think at least. All the stress of becoming the leader is definitely getting to Otis though, and he decides that it's time to reflect on things and try to figure them out. Miles suggests that we step in and take on some of the normal farm duties, which we do so without objection. This will push us into doing the fence building and the fruit sorting minigames again, along with 2 other new ones. The returning minigames, as I mentioned before, will get harder now that we have cleared them before. You have way more fence posts to work on in the former, and for the fruit sorting, not only do you have to last longer, but the conveyor belts get faster, and the second half of the game will have more swaps you have to do. This actually took me a couple of tries to get right as well, just because sometimes my brain would just not register the movements as fast as they were expecting me to. And sometimes I would forget that I was alternating the barrels and not the fruit on the actual conveyor belts. Kind of one of those mental gymnastic exercises you have to work through, so be sure you keep that in mind. I did eventually get it though, it just took a couple of runs to get it right. The other two games are new though, and one is focused on the herding of sheep, and it's basically just direct all the black sheep on one side and all the white sheep on the other. Sometimes the sheep may merge together, which means you have to kind of lead them around until they separate, but overall it's not too bad. The other game is a defense game where you must aim a slingshot and prevent gophers from stealing stuff from your vegetable garden. As I would find out later, this game works more on Space Invader logic, where all the gophers will start appearing at the top, and if you miss any of them, they will slowly move their way down, stopping at each row and giving you an additional chance to hit them. I was able to beat both of these on my first try, but like the other two games, these are games where you can earn medals, so we'll definitely be back later to get some gold stars, I'm sure. After clearing these tasks, we can talk to Otis to continue, but I did a bit of exploring first. Gus was at the Apple Drop game, so I obviously decided to do that to get a trophy, and the requirement was actually pretty generous too, so no problems there. I also finally found the golf course too, which gave us 2 additional minigames to play. One was a simple driving test where we just have to hit objects as far as we could by pressing the button as close to the top of the meter as possible without going over. Really not too complicated. The other was actually a lot more intriguing though, as we discovered an actual mini golf course. I got really excited when I saw this at first, because it reminded me a lot of some of the mini golf games I played on game websites back in the day. Once again, shoutouts to Candy Stand, best browser-based mini golf game ever. However, while I did enjoy this at first, some of these holes are absolutely insane, some requiring 5 hits to even get a par. Not to mention, with how zoomed in the camera is and how hard it is to aim beyond just the first initial direction of your shot, it's really hard to know how your ball is going to bounce or how hard you need to hit it to the point where your following shot won't be obstructed by something else. I got a really disappointing score as a result, but thankfully I didn't have a challenge for this game yet, so at the very least this game gave me some early practice of what to expect for later if I did have to do another full round. So at least that's something. So after hitting the links for a bit, and now that I was done with all my tasks, I head back over to Miles, who is happy we were able to help out, and asks us to give Ben's old guitar to Otis. After doing so, Otis is thankful for the gift and rewards us by giving us a wonderful object that will make getting around a lot easier. A can of spray that will completely remove thorn bushes. There have been a lot of thorns in this game, but I haven't mentioned them yet since they didn't really hinder any of our progress, just blocked optional collectibles and shortcuts to get around the map more efficiently. So, now that we have this, we should be moving at a much faster pace now. I spend the next 2 in-game days doing some cleanup, finishing the Gus challenges for both the mailman taunting game and the bike race, getting the remaining gold medals I need for all the gold stars I hadn't picked up yet, and just any other quests I hadn't been able to do, shy of those that involve entering the next main area of the game. At one point, we get asked to meet up with the Jersey Cows for a round of mini-golf, so yeah, there we go. I knew that practice round was probably going to be good for something. We do have a score threshold we have to beat now too, but thankfully I am prepared for it this time, and beat it rather easily. As we leave the golf course though, we notice something happening in the distance when a bratty little kid starts tipping over cows. Apparently that's been going on here lately, and naturally we want to put a stop to it. We join the Jersey Cows and sneaking to where the kid lives, breaking into the house and proceeding to tip over the kid? Okay then. I'm honestly not sure whether to find this incredibly hilarious or just completely effed up. Probably a little more of the latter. Well, either way, we need to step on it and get out of Dodge. God, when I say it like that, you'd almost think we're about to do a high-speed car chase minigame sequence or something. Now that would be completely ridiculous. Oh. Never mind. As I leave the area, I catch some fireflies in the woods, which I actually used to give to Duke, who makes us a firefly lantern. Apparently this can actually scare away raccoons if you equip it when running around, perfect for pushing them out of the way if you really need them to shoo, but the item itself is not very necessary. Now at this point, I feel like we're about done, as the final area is about to open up, and we need to go to the junkyard to rescue Peck, one of the barnyard birds who accidentally end up there in a flying lesson. The junkyard is home to the coyotes that we've been fearing throughout this game, and potentially the same ones who got Ben, so we need to be ready for this mission. I basically take care of any other loose ends I have at this point. I do a few more trophy challenges, both of which are related to the golf-related games we played earlier, and one of Otis's friends asks us to get some mysterious red flowers, which we've actually been able to see these mysterious stems throughout the game, but you actually harvest them in a very unique way. If you consume a strawberry, the milk you shoot from your udders will turn into strawberry milk. And if you use this on stems, the flowers will appear, and then you can take them with you. We need to obtain 8 of these, and if you've been observant or been taking notes, they shouldn't be too hard to find. Plus, a number of them are behind the thorn plants we just recently got the means to clear out, so there you go. Eventually, we finally talk to Miles and get the story moving, but we need to open the junkyard first, and the key to the junkyard was buried a long time ago by Ben. Miles gives us a shovel to dig up the key, and no, Slim, not Ben's corpse. Okay, there you go. We open the junkyard gates, sneak into the well-guarded area, and make our way to Peck in an effort to save him. It really wasn't that hard either. Just make sure your light circle doesn't touch the coyotes, and you'll be fine. With Peck saved, we decide it's finally time to do something about those coyotes for good. But before we do, something is going on with the raccoons that we need to investigate. So let's head on over to their giant oak tree first. We finally meet the leader of the raccoons, and after listening to his silly gibberish, he gives us a challenge so demanding, so challenging, so unbelievably complicated... Oh wait, puzzles? Step aside, raccoon boys, and let me show you how it's done. See? I live for this stuff. Booyah! Also, one of the weird strawberry plants was in here too, apparently. I thought it was weird they said I had one left, but no conceivable idea of where it was, but guess it was here the whole time. We make our way back to our home base when we find out that some of the animals at the barn are missing, and Otis went to go after them as they are likely at the junkyard. It looks like the final confrontation is finally upon us, just when Daisy, goes into labor. Well, looks like this is up to us now. We head to the junkyard, rescue Otis just in the nick of time, and even the raccoons come to help us out as the final minigame approaches. In this game, we have to hold A to throw raccoons, I guess, and stop the coyotes from reaching the injured Otis. After the time runs out, we officially win and finally head back to the barn. Daisy gives birth to her new calf, which she names Ben. Aw, how cute. Otis thanks us for all of our help, and the adventure of Barnyard comes to an end. Game complete. Okay, so before I wrap this up, I will say that this was essentially a 100% playthrough. I say essentially because I did not do one of the trophy challenges, but in my defense, the challenges and the order you get them is completely random, as Gus randomly picks one of the minigames to do each day, and it will not hesitate to pick games you've already done, even if there is one you haven't yet. I waited an additional 10 or so in-game days after beating this game, using the emulator's fast forward feature, and it was just not giving me the game at all. I assume it was the car chase one because the trophy silhouette showed a vehicle of some kind, but still, I am unable to confirm that for 100% certainty. Plus, I wasn't sure if I could have gotten gold trophies for all the minigames anyway, as some of them were gold and some were silver. So maybe I could have gotten higher scores and better trophies as well. Regardless, getting these trophies was unnecessary anyway, and clearly a true 100% condition. So I really don't think we were missing much regardless. As for what I did collect, I was pretty certain I had beaten all the other quests and side quests that were offered to me at this point. I had received all the gold stars and turned them all in for max stats, gotten every equipable item, purchased every cosmetic option for the barn, as well as all the barn minigame kits, found every soundtrack record, which you could find a good number of them laying on the ground throughout the game, and found every piece of illustrated art where, like the records, could be found on the ground, be gotten as rewards from side quests, and some could even be dug up from the ground with a shovel. These things were everywhere, so yeah, I did quite a bit for this game. Way more than what constitutes even beating it in the first place. As I imagine just going through the story and focusing on the main missions, you could have this game beaten in like 2 hours at most. It really wasn't that long or difficult, and even the difficult parts, most of them were likely optional anyway. But let's get to the bigger point. This game severely thwarted any and all expectations. And sure, that was due to happen regardless, since I didn't even know of this movie or brand's existence until this challenge anyway. But what really got me was how damn good this game actually was. Sure, the game itself is not that deep, what with it and the movie being made for kids or a younger audience anyway, but honestly, I think as a kid, I would have personally enjoyed this as a game if I had it. All the minigames are done pretty well, almost to the extent where they honestly could have made a Mario Party-like game out of it to make it even more fun, and the game is laid out in a very accessible way where it's not too complicated or cryptic to make progress. And even if it does seem like things are locked off, it'll usually not be too long until something opens up, which gives you more initiative and drive to keep making progress on what you already have available. Honestly, a very unexpected gem of this system. The presentation is honestly not too bad either. Not the most amazing looking game on the system, nor the most pleasant to listen to, but far from the worst. I think it could have probably done with a few more songs though, and maybe songs with, well, more instrument variety. I also thought it was rather interesting how the game's focus has you following a creative character as opposed to, just being the main character. It gives you a little more freedom in how you approach events and makes it kind of a unique experience, all things considered, especially if you have seen the movie before. My favorite aspect of this was when the Jersey Cows decided to give me a nickname, and they prompted me for what I wanted it to be. I went with Milky just because I thought it was funny and stupid, and it was good for a laugh or two. Okay guys, it's scoring time, and honestly, I'm gonna give Barnyard a 4 out of 5 for general game quality. It was honestly that good, and I'll match personal enjoyment with that score as well. I had a lot of fun with this one, and that was not something I was expecting. It wasn't a perfect experience, and sure, the game was a little on the easy side, not to mention it lacked a bit for certain presentation aspects and areas of convenience. The map could have been a little more detailed and helpful with locating secondary objectives and characters, and the menu was kinda clunky when it came to equipping items, but still, those things didn't hamper my enjoyment really. For difficulty, I'll give it a 1.5. It really wasn't that hard at all to beat. Maybe a few games could be challenging if you're going for 100%, but not many were, and most of my issues were more due to my controller problems and not really the game itself. Anyway, I think that will do it for Nickelodeon's Barnyard. Really nice work on this game, Half Brick and THQ. This was a pleasant surprise, and it's actually getting me excited to check out the next licensed shovelware game I'll be doing for this challenge, no matter how scary it might be. But that's for another time. Let's check out the next game we'll be doing for this challenge. Okay guys, thank you for watching this summary. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave a comment and or like on the video, as those will really help me in these videos out. And stay tuned for future summaries of this series. If you also want to watch full playthroughs of these games for this challenge, check out the video description for a full playlist of everything that's been uploaded and exported so far. And if you're curious about what I'm playing right now for the challenge, be sure to stop by my Twitch channel to see what my current progress is. Just be warned, I'll be a lot further ahead of where we are for these summaries, so keep that in mind. This has been SlimKirby in the GBA series, and I'll talk to you fine people next time. Later, folks.